Hello, I'm Miguel Azorín and I welcome you to Natural Portraits. We're starting a powerful new free course, a course that the whole community has been asking for a lot. Welcome to the first episode of the Luminar NEO Course. As I just mentioned, this course will be completely free and you'll find it available both on the Natural Portraits YouTube channel and at the Natural Portraits Academy. At the Academy, in addition to everything you'll see on the YouTube channel, we'll also be supplementing this course with some interesting extras, such as updates as they come out or complete photo editing workflows from start to finish in different photography styles. So, if you haven't checked out the Natural Portraits Academy yet, I encourage you to do so right now, completely free of charge with this course. If you're a regular follower of the Natural Portraits project, you'll know that for several years now, Luminar has been my default software for photo editing. And since the release of Luminar NEO, the power of this software has increased exponentially, allowing us to achieve complete edits from start to finish in just a few seconds and with only a few clicks. In this course, we will go through all the tools in this program, from the very basics, installation, catalog setup, and basic editing, to the most advanced features, such as how the AI-powered generative tools work, blending tools, or resolution enhancement. This course will be divided into 3 main episodes which, as I mentioned, will be complemented by other content within the Natural Portraits Academy. This is the first episode where, as you can see, we are introducing the program. We will look at how to access the 7-day trial license and the different plans and licenses this software offers. We will dive right into the program, first taking an in-depth look at how its catalog works. We will review the preset adjustments or presets, which are basically complete edits that the program already includes or that we can create ourselves to apply to our images with a single click. And finally, we will dive right into basic photo development, that is, what we might refer to as raw processing. We will look at layer properties, how we can work on a layer using masks, cropping tools, leveling, and so on. And in the next 2 chapters of this course, we will go in depth into the creative tools of Luminar NEO and into the advanced AI-powered tools so that we can make the most of all the potential this software has to offer. With that said, let's move on to the first section of this first episode of the course, where we'll see how to access the 7-day trial version of Luminar NEO and the plans this software offers. I'd also like to mention that by applying the discount code NATURAL during your purchase, you'll get €10 off on all available plans. And with that said, let's go straight to the computer. Alright, so here we are on the website where we can download the trial version of Luminar NEO, which, as you can see, lasts for 7 days, exactly 1 week. Therefore, if you're not yet a Luminar NEO user and you're not sure if this software truly fits your needs as a photographer, I recommend downloading this trial version to test it out. That way, you can take advantage of everything you'll see in this course without spending any money. This means you'll have access to all the tools in Luminar NEO, be able to try them out thoroughly, and finally decide if this software is right for you. You can download the trial version of Luminar NEO from this website, skylum.com/Luminar Trial, although you'll also find the link in the description of this episode, where you can simply click and access the Luminar NEO trial version directly. And regarding the plans to access this software, JAB. To purchase your license directly, let's take a look at them here. Here we have the 3 plans that Skylum offers to access this software, Luminar NEO. As you can see, the first and cheapest one costs €99 as a one-time payment. The most popular one costs €129, also as a one-time payment, and the maximum license costs €139, again as a one-time payment. And that's because Luminar NEO is software that does not work on a subscription basis, unlike other software like Adobe Photoshop or many others you can find on the market. Luminar NEO is a perpetual license software with a one-time payment. That is, we pay only once and have lifetime access to all the benefits this software offers. It's important to be clear that currently, and for the past few years, we are within the Luminar NEO version. However, there have been other versions of this software before, such as Luminar AI or Luminar 2018. These are older versions that also operated with this one-time payment and perpetual license system. However, having access to our perpetual license now does not mean that when Skylum releases a new version of Luminar in the future, if they do, we will be able to upgrade to that version automatically without having to pay more. No, it doesn't work that way. Basically, this works the way software used to work in the past. When you bought a perpetual license, for example, for Adobe Photoshop, and after a year or two, Adobe would release a new version of Photoshop. and if you wanted to upgrade to that new version, you had to buy another perpetual license, maybe with a discount for having a previous license, but you still had to pay more money to get the new version of Adobe Photoshop. If you decided that the new version of Adobe Photoshop didn't offer enough new features to justify switching, you could simply keep the license and version you had originally purchased and continue working with it. Well, Luminar's philosophy is exactly the same. But as I said, right now for the past couple of years, we've had Luminar NEO, which is the most powerful software Skylum has released for photo editing. And as you'll see throughout this course, it can offer us a lot for our photographs. What are the differences between each of these licenses? Well, as you can see, the most basic one is a license for desktop use only. With this license, we can download Luminar NEO for Windows or Mac. We won't have access to the mobile versions for iOS, Android, or Chrome. We also won't have access to the creative libraries, but we will have access to the creative add-ons, the Luminar courses, and the Luminar NEO Quick Guide, which are included in the most popular version, the one that costs €129. Well, in this case, the main difference, or we could say the only difference, is that here we do have a license that allows us to work on multiple devices, not just on a computer, but also on our mobile phone with the mobile app for iOS, Android, or Chrome. Otherwise, it offers us exactly the same features. We also have access to the creative add-ons, the Luminar courses, and the Luminar NEO Quick Guide. Now let's move on to the highest tier license, which is the one that costs €139. In this case, we have access to everything. We get a desktop license for our computer, access to the mobile app for iOS, Android, or Chrome, and we also have access to the creative library, where we can find over 1,000 presets, eludes, skies, in short, a ton of tools that we'll see how to use throughout this course. Plus, you get the creative add-ons, the courses, and the Luminar NEO Quick Start Guide. As you can see, all three plans are one-time payments and come with a 30-day money-back guarantee. That means if you end up buying the software, start testing it, and realize it really doesn't fit your workflow as a photographer, you can request a refund within those 30 days. And after reviewing the different plans that Luminar offers, let me remind you that if you choose any of these, and right here where it says Add Promotional Code, you enter the word natural in all caps. As you can see, you get a €10 discount off the plan price. This applies to any of the three plans you just saw, and with this, you'll purchase your license, download the software to your computer, install it, and you'll be ready to start working with Luminar NEO, as we'll see later on in this episode. Alright, with this, we now have our Luminar NEO software installed on our computer, and we're ready to start working with it. Let's launch it and start setting up our catalog to store our images. Alright, we're back here at the computer, and with Luminar NEO already installed, we're ready to launch it. So let's get to it. When we run Luminar NEO for the first time, we'll see something similar to this, except for these photos I have here, which are some images I've already worked on in Luminar NEO. But basically, you'll find something very similar to this. When we open Luminar NEO, we go straight into the Catalog tab, which is what we have open right now. Basically, this is our image bank managed by Luminar. Let's take a look around the catalog to see where everything is. Here on the left side, as you can see, it shows that we're in the catalog. And here we have a series of options. We have the option to add photos, the option to search, and then further down we have different sections. There's the All Photos section, where, as you can see, I have images from the year 2025, specifically taken in February, April, May, and June, which correspond to the images I have here. Then, in addition, we have the sample images. These are the images that Luminar NEO provides so we can practice with them and get an idea of what we can achieve with our own photos using this software. Let's take a look at them. Here we have this image, which, as you can see, is extremely blurry. An image that I would say is unusable in any other software. But let's see what Luminar NEO allows us to do with its artificial intelligence tools. As you can see, a series of stickers appear here that we can click on and try out to see what they do. And well, this is a dodge and burn. It's a tool for selectively lightening and darkening different areas of the photo. For example, here we can make all of this area lighter. We can make it softer. Or darken, for example, this area here. So we can create depth in the image. Alright, we'll look at this in more detail later in the course. Let's go back to the catalog and continue with this image, looking at other things we can do with it. For example, the most important thing I notice in this photo is that the image is extremely blurry, and here it tells us that we can recover details and add sharpness to the image. Let's try it out. And here, the Super Sharp tool opens up directly, where we can make adjustments at low, medium, and high levels. Here, with such a blurry image, I think I would choose high. Let's see what Luminar NEO can do. Well, look at what it gave us. Did you see what the image looked like just a moment ago? It was extremely blurry. Now we have a focused image. For me, this image was unsalvageable, but we've gone from this to this. It's really spectacular how, in this case, it allows us, with the help of artificial intelligence, to save a photo that with any other software would have been absolutely unsalvageable. Spectacular. Let's try another tool, for example, this one here. Well, this is to apply different effects, different looks to the image, for example, creative looks. As you can see, we can add different tones and different atmospheres to our image. All these tools, as I mentioned, we will be looking at in detail throughout this course. Let's look at another sample image, for example, this one here, to achieve those sun rays that are so characteristic of this Luminar NEO software. And notice that here we have the adjustments that have been applied to this photograph. The super contrast tool, sun rays, and landscape have been applied. In the landscape section, they have used the golden hour tool, which allows us to emphasize that golden hour. Notice how those colors come out. This image looked like this, and by using this golden hour slider, we can really emphasize it a lot. Those reddish or orange tones. We can also work on the green colors in the landscapes. Here we can affect the haze in the image. We can adjust it however we want. The sun rays, notice that it allows us to position the sun wherever we want and create those cool sun rays that we love in our images. And from here, we can control how Luminar NEO works, how it adds those sun rays for us. From here, we can control how far they reach, how much they illuminate, and the penetration of the sun rays. And this is a really interesting thing because notice how it detects the elements in the landscape so that those sun rays filter through the landscape elements. It's truly a super powerful tool that we're going to explore in depth in this course. Let's look at another example. For example, here, we can see how Luminar NEO has changed the sky in the photograph. This is also one of the most powerful tools that Luminar NEO offers us, which we will look at in depth. Let's see the changes made to this photograph and notice that the sky has been changed. The original photo looked like this, a landscape in Iceland that on that particular day was really dull. They've replaced the sky with this one here, but we can choose any other sky. For example, let's use this one. Look how dramatic it is, and notice how well it blends the sky. In this course, we will see how we can achieve such perfect sky blends in our images. For example, this one here, spectacular. From here, as you can see, we can control the position of the sky, both vertically and horizontally. And over here, we have all the options to make any adjustments we want to that sky. The color has also been adjusted. From here, you can adjust the color of the photograph. In this case, I don't like how this adjustment looks with this sky at all, so I would remove it. And finally, from here, they've given this image a dramatic touch. Well, that's another example of what we can do with Luminar NEO, which we will be exploring in depth throughout this course. Now let's see how we can bring our own images into Luminar NEO. And we do this from here, from Add Photos. As you can see, we can add folders or individual images. Let's take a detailed look at this. Let's start by adding folders. For example, I'm going to go here to my photographs folder and add the Cabo de Gata 2025 folder from the last Cabo de Gata workshop I did with my colleague Javier Alonso Torre. I click on the folder and select Select Folder. And now we have the folder added, as you can see here under Folders. We have the Cabo de Gata folder with 181 photos, which contains 3 subfolders inside. One folder contains images taken with the Sony a6600, and in this case, some photos that I had already previously developed, which are found in a folder inside this Cabo de Gata 2025 folder. In this simple way, we can add folders, complete with our photos, and have them perfectly organized within the Luminar NEO catalog. Now let's see what happens when we add individual images. From Add Photos, Add Image, we can go to any folder, for example La Palma 2025, and I can come over here and pick any of these photos that are here. For example, this one right here. And here we have the image. As you can see, it has opened individually. If I go back here to the catalog, under individual images, I have these 7 photos, including the one I just added. If I go to all photos, I have all of them. I have all the images from the folder I added, and I also have all the individual images. But at the same time, I can access the images from the folder and the individual images separately. As you can clearly see, we also prominently feature recently added images and also recently edited images, just in case we had made any recent and important edits. For example, if I take this photo I just added and make any quick adjustment, I'll go here to Essentials and increase the exposure. For example, if I go back to the catalog, here we have recently edited, and now that photo has appeared there. And we have lost edits. These are photos that the program records as having been edited at some point, but the raw file has been lost or deleted. As you can see, here I have different images that I've worked on at different times in Luminar NEO. And finally, the trash bin, where the images we delete will appear. Also, as you can see, we can create albums here as well. We can select different photos. For example, I'm going to pick this one, this one, this one, and this one, and then I'll come here and tell it to create an album with those 4 photos. And here I will specifically name it landscape photography. This particular approach allows me to effectively organize various different images into distinct subfolders within these main albums, thereby helping me to classify and meticulously keep all my images well organized precisely however I truly want them to be. I can make these selections and include these photos within the albums. And then, as for the rest, we can organize things within the catalog however we want. We can mark photos as favorites, we can rate photos with stars. In short, we can classify the images however we like so we can find them later. On the right side of the catalog section, we have all the generative tools, the panorama tools, the resolution enhancement tools, and so on, that Luminar NEO offers us. As you can see here, we have the generative tools. All these tools work with artificial intelligence and are quite powerful. We have the HDR tool, we have the focus stacking tool, the panorama tool, the generate tool. All of these tools will be covered in depth in a specific episode dedicated to them within this course. And now that we've covered the catalog section of Luminar NEO, we're ready to move on to the preset section and the editing section. With the image catalog already set up, we're ready to start developing our photos. But before we move on to actual editing, let's take a look at presets. We'll see what they are, which presets are available to us, how to access them, and how to create our own presets. Alright, so let's continue with presets, which can be found here at the top and in the center section. If we click on this tab, we'll enter this section of the program. And what are presets? Well, basically, they are complete adjustments, full edits that we can apply to our photos with just one click. As you can see, there are many types of presets. These are the ones that come with Luminar by default. For example, here we have the HDR collection. As you can see, these are paid. You would have to purchase them separately, but here you can already see what effect they would have on your image, in this case on this image. Keep in mind that they will be applied differently to each photo. But here we have all the ones that come by default with Luminar NEO. As you can see, all of these are also paid. And here you can also access the Luminar NEO store, where you can find all the available presets for photography. But let's focus on the ones that come by default with the program. Depending on the type of photo you're editing or the one you want to apply the preset to, you can choose different sections. For example, cinematic, for aerial photography, for portrait photography, for macro photography, for natural photography in general, for landscapes, essentials, and so on. We have a ton of them to apply to our images. In any case, I recommend that you don't box yourself in. For example, if this is night photography, you don't have to look specifically for presets for night photography, because the best thing about presets is seeing how they look when applied to your images. For example, I'm going to click here, this one here, for landscapes, and let's see how the different presets we have here would look on our image. Look, for example, we have one in black and white, Honestly, a night photo in black and white is at the very least different, but there you have it. Over here we have this one, which I really like how it looks, how it saturates the colors. Honestly, it looks really good. Here we have clean night, sunset, long exposure. We could choose any of them. And all we would have to do is simply click. And from here, we have the wonderful option to control to what precise degree the preset is being applied to our beautiful photo, because we can choose to apply it only to a certain percentage, in this particular case at 70%. And this photo would already be perfectly developed in this way, simply by applying the preset. It's as simple as that. Let's go to another image, for example, this one right here. And in this specific case, I'm going to go with this aerial photography preset because, well, even though this isn't actually an authentic aerial photo, it could certainly look like one. This impressive photo was taken on La Palma Island with a powerful 400mm telephoto lens. It's a small landscape in the distance that could easily pass for a photo taken with a modern drone. So I'm going to click here. And here we have these amazing presets, as you can clearly see, different developments, different edits with just one single click. For example, this one here, and since it saturates too much, I'm only going to apply it at 50%. Okay, these are the default presets that come pre-installed with Luminar NEO. As you can see down here, we have all the various categories: Essentials, Mother Nature, Macro, Landscape, Portrait, and so on. But what would happen if you meticulously edit one of your cherished photos and then want to use it as a preset for other similar edits you want to perform? Could we effectively do this with Luminar NEO? Well, actually yes. We can indeed create our very own custom presets in Luminar NEO. And this is truly amazing because we're no longer limited to just using the presets that come with the program by default. But we can develop our own unique presets and apply them to our images in exactly the same powerful way. So, how can we accomplish this? Well, for this, first we need a photo that we want to carefully edit. For example, I'm going to take this photo here, go over here to the edit module, and I'm going to make a very basic yet effective adjustment to this particular image. From here, I'm going to raise the shadows. I'm going to lower the highlights, and I'm going to decrease the contrast. Here in the color section, I'm going to significantly increase the overall color saturation a little bit. And over here in the super contrast section, I'm going to carefully work a little on the photo's contrast to enhance its visual appeal. In highlights, midtones, and shadows. All of this that I'm doing so quickly, don't worry, because we're going to look at it in detail throughout this course. This would be a quick edit that I've done on this photo and that I want to use as a preset. So how do we do it? Well, it's a little bit hidden, but I'm going to show you how to do it, and from now on, you'll be able to create your own presets for your photos. We just need to come down here to the bottom section. And here, right next to where we have the star rating, we have this little button that says plus. If we click on it, as you can see, it says save as preset or save as preset. If I click here, it asks me what name do you want to give the preset. Well, I want to put here Blue Hour Landscape. And as you can see, it's going to save it for us in a dedicated section called My Presets. And here we would already have our custom created preset readily available. So the crucial question is, how exactly can we effectively apply this newly created preset now to our various photos? Well, to do this, we simply exit from this current view, and as you can clearly observe, we're automatically directed into the main preset section. We still have all the numerous default presets we've encountered and seen before that come pre-installed by default with the software, but now, prominently displayed here, we have our very own My Presets category, and if we proceed to click on it, right here, we will find our specifically designed and saved preset. If I now carefully select this other distinct photo and then proceed to apply our chosen preset to it, there we have that particular preset successfully applied to the image. This specific image is, as you can see, much more significantly exposed, perhaps a bit overexposed, but we can easily go to this other one that inherently has a lower exposure level and simply apply our preset to it. And notice how with just one single click, a mere tap, we can instantly apply these powerful adjustments and consequently have fully developed, beautifully enhanced images. We could have, of course, created this particular preset with many more intricate and detailed adjustments to the photo. I did it very quickly and quite simply for demonstration purposes so you can clearly see and understand how it's effectively done. But this comprehensive way, with absolutely everything you will thoroughly learn and master in this in-depth Luminar NEO course, you'll be fully equipped and able to proficiently use all the powerful and innovative tools this exceptional software offers, and furthermore, create your very own personalized and unique presets to apply directly and seamlessly to all your future edits and photographic enhancements. And finally, after reviewing all of this, we're ready to move on to the Edit tab, where we'll find most of the tools that Luminar NEO offers. But in this episode, we're going to stick to basic development. We'll look at working with layers and layer masks, review layer properties, go over adjustments like cropping and straightening photos, and finish with the raw development tools. Alright, so at this point, in this first episode of the Luminar course that you're enjoying, having reviewed everything related to the catalog and Luminar's presets, all that's left is to dive into the most important part of the software, the Edit tab, where we have practically all the tools that Luminar offers for our photo development. In this first episode, we are only going to look at the essential tools, the basic development tools in Luminar NEO. Starting from the next episodes of this course, we will go deeper into the rest of the creative and professional tools, and even all the AI-powered generative tools that this program offers. But for now, let's stick to the essential and most basic tools for photo development. The Edit tab is this one right here, as you can see. Here on the right side, we have all the tools that Luminar NEO offers us. And as you can see, this software is incredibly intuitive. There's nothing more to it. Here we don't have complicated sliders or tools like the ones you might find in Adobe Photoshop or other photo editing programs. Everything here is organized into these sections. We have favorites, tools related to quality, essentials, landscape, creative, portrait, professional, and up here we have tools related to layer properties, cropping, and so on. As you can see, this image is one we've already worked on earlier in this episode, so here in the changes or editing section, we can already see the different adjustments that have been made to the photograph. From here, we can see how each of these changes has been applied, and we could even go to the specific changes and readjust them from here. For example, here we have noise reduction. Over here we have a development adjustment, but from here, we could go back and make changes to this adjustment, and it would affect the rest of the edits we've made. This is important to keep in mind, especially for those edits where, after applying different processes to our photo, we realized that in a previous step, we should have fine-tuned one of the tools better. Well, from here, we can access and modify exactly what we want to correct. From here, as you can see, we could discard all the changes and return our image to its starting point. Over here on the left side, we have everything related to Luminar's layers, and as you can see, our image itself is one of the layers, but we can add new layers on top of it. As you can see, Luminar provides us by default with a series of layers that can be applied as effects to our photo. For example, I'm going to apply this one here, and as you can see, we now have that layer superimposed on our image. From here, in the layer properties, we can control the opacity, we can control the orientation in which it's applied, horizontal, vertical, we can adjust it, we can fill, we can tweak the layer however we want, and we can also apply different blending modes, normal, darken, multiply, lighten, etc. This is really practical for applying certain effects to our photo, but not only can we apply the default layers to our image, from here by right-clicking on the layer, we could delete it, and we could also add any other photo we have by clicking this plus sign here. We click the plus, and there's another plus inside. From here, we could apply any other image we have. So if we have our own images to use as effects, for example, a fog effect, or any other kind of effect on our photo, we could apply it from here. I'll just randomly pick an image and apply it on top. And now we have this blend of two images, a creative effect. But above all, I think this has a lot of potential if we use images with, for example, clouds, smoke, fog effects. These kinds of effects can be applied this way to the photo. Here, simply with the slider, we can move from one layer to another, and as you can see, we can apply successive layers. We could add another layer and create different effects on our image. This is how Luminar's layer workflow operates. Now let's look at how, within our own image, which as you see is on a layer, we can manipulate it inside Luminar. Here in the layer properties, we can also work on the layer where our image is. We can crop it, enlarge it, we can do a lot of work on our layer. Likewise, as you can see, we can apply masks. I'm going to apply another one of these effect layers, for example, this one here. If I set it to screen mode, from here I can go and apply a mask, for example, a brush mask. And I'm going to make it so that this layer isn't applied to the top part, so I just have to click here on the erase button. And it's as simple as this. Wherever it's not painted red, that layer won't be applied. So if I do this, notice that right now we only have that fog effect in the foreground. And in the upper part, where we have that peak, that sky with the moon, we wouldn't have this effect. Alright, let's see how to work with the layer where our own image is located. As I mentioned, from here, in the layer properties, we can adjust it however we want. And we can manipulate our layer to our liking. But from here we also have the crop tool, and as you can see, the crop tool also allows us to level the horizon. From here we can level the horizon automatically. This photograph we have here was taken with a wide-angle lens, and as you can see, the horizon shows some distortion. But from here, it's very easy to level the horizon using these guides that appear here. In fact, here you can clearly see the distortion in the horizon, but more or less around here, we would have it perfectly leveled. From here, as you can see, we can stretch, crop our photo, or stretch it all the way to the edge of the image exactly as we want. As you can see, from here we can rotate it, flip it horizontally, flip it vertically, etc. And likewise, from here we can apply a specific aspect ratio to the photo, for example, 1:1, 4:5, 5:7, 4:3, whatever we want. We can even apply a custom aspect ratio from here. Here, you would simply click on Apply, and the crop you just made would be applied. Another interesting feature of this crop tool is the AI composition button. If we click it, we let Luminar do the work. Notice that it has automatically applied a crop to the image, paying attention to the best composition this framing offers us. That is, my image is this one here. My image is this one where we have some rocks over here that are cut off on this side. Here we have this rock, here we have the moon, we have this foreground. In reality, it's a composition that is generally well thought out. But if we let Luminar apply artificial intelligence, it tells us that this would be a more balanced composition. In fact, I'm not entirely sure because this rock here ends up very close to the edge, but Luminar has really taken the elements of the image into account, and all I would need to do is slightly move the edge of the image away from that rock. And look at the composition I would have now, with the moon perfectly equidistant from both the top and the right edge of the image, and these rocks below finishing off the framing. If I apply it, we would have this framing that Luminar has calculated for us using artificial intelligence. That is, with the elements we have in our photo, Luminar considers this composition optimal for the photo we've given it. Okay, now let's move on to the essential tools, the image quality tools, and the favorite tools. And for this, what I'm going to do is undo all the changes we've applied to the photograph. From here, either from changes or from edit, I'm going to undo all of it, and right now we have the image back at its starting point. From here, in Essentials, we have the raw development, where we can tell Luminar to make an automatic adjustment for us. Normally, I don't recommend this because, well, even though it works well, anything that's automatic I prefer not to use, and I prefer to have total control over what we do. But we do have that option. From here, we can choose the color profile we want to work with. I recommend that you work with Luminar's default profile, or in any case with Adobe Standard, which, as you can see, is a bit flatter than Luminar's default profile. If we click here, it's a little bit flatter. Here we have the usual options found in any RAW developer. We can control the exposure, we can control the contrast, although in this case, as you can see, it's smart contrast. It also works through artificial intelligence, and it allows us to control both highlights and shadows very accurately. Highlights and shadows. If I make a more or less basic adjustment here, I would lower the highlights, raise the shadows, and there we would more or less have the image. From here, we would control whites and blacks. We have the curves tool over here. Exactly the same as what we would have in other photo editing programs, and here we have the color section. From here, we can control the saturation of the photo, the vibrance, and finally, we also have sharpness here. Basically, it allows us to control the focus of the photo. Although, as we'll see later in this course, Luminar NEO offers us very powerful sharpening tools that are much more effective than this focus tool here. But anyway, from here we can work on the focus of the photo, we can work on noise reduction, both luminance noise and color noise. From here, we can also work on lens corrections. Remember, I told you that the horizon in this photo is slightly curved due to the use of a wide-angle lens. Well, from here we could correct distortions, we could correct chromatic aberrations. If you notice, it has just automatically applied the correction for me. Notice how that horizon is now perfectly corrected. And in this case, right now I would have to correct this part here again, since the rock has come out on that side again. So from here, from the crop tool, it's as simple as just move it a little like this and you'd have it fixed again. If you think that the adjustment Luminar NEO applied to that horizon isn't correct, well, from here you always have the option to finish adjusting it. And from here, under Transform, you have options to flip the image, adjust it vertically, horizontally, change the aspect ratio, etc. Alright, so that covers the entire develop section of Luminar NEO, the most basic things you can do in Luminar NEO. In the next episode, we'll cover the rest of the tools, both within the essentials, like the erase tool, structure, color, black and white, details, etc., as well as the other tools for landscape, creative, portrait, and professional edits. But we're not leaving this episode without taking a look at the favorites, because they're actually very powerful, and also the image quality tools. Let's take a quick look at them. Here in favorites, we have two tools that are super powerful, Accent and Sky Enhancer. Let's take a closer look at each of them. Notice how incredibly simple they are. Each of these tools is just a single slider. And look at what you can achieve with the Accent tool. I'm going to remove all the adjustments I've made, reset everything, go back to the starting point, return to the tools, and now I'll apply the Accent tool. And just look at what this tool allows you to achieve. It lets us lift all the shadows in the photo while preserving the highlights. It's true that the moon has gotten a bit blown out, but that's because we're dealing with a very strong backlight here. But just look at what we can achieve with this tool. If we switch to a photo with less backlighting, let's pick another image that doesn't have such strong backlight. For example, this one here. Here we have much less backlight. If I use this tool, look at what I can achieve. I can perfectly preserve the highlights, keep those colors, balance the image, and lift all the shadows. And with the Sky Enhancer tool, just look at the amazing skies I can get just by moving two sliders. By moving just two sliders, the photo is practically developed. From here, we also have the Sky Replacement tool, which we'll save for future episodes of this course, because it's a tool that could easily fill an entire episode. But before we go, let's take a look at the AI Noise Reduction tool. As you can see, it analyzes the photo and tells us what level of noise reduction to apply. Low, medium, or high. In this case, it tells me to use low noise reduction, so we click on low and let Luminar do its job. And now we have the noise reduction applied, so let's see how it turned out. Let's focus here on the rocks in the foreground, and as you can see, the image had a bit of noise. It's true that it was just a little bit of noise, but you can especially notice it in the rocks and in the water. In the water, we can see how there was some grain that has completely disappeared, and on the rocks there was also a bit of grain that has also vanished entirely. So, a perfect noise reduction. We'll see more examples applying much more extreme noise reductions, and this is how Luminar's AI noise reduction would be applied. And here we have the Super Sharp tool. This tool will allow us to sharpen our photo using artificial intelligence to achieve extreme sharpness. As you can see, we have different options here. Let's apply it in universal mode and set it to a medium adjustment. And here it is. Well, just look at the sharpness these rocks show now. Let's zoom in and see how it's been applied. We'll go to 100% and check the before and after. Just look. Look at how it brings out detail where it seemed there was none. All this part of the rock here. See how it's bringing out detail? In this one here too, the detail is spectacular. This tool works especially well for those areas of the photo that are out of focus. Notice that this rock in the foreground isn't fully in focus. In fact, it's out of focus. And see how it's able to bring out detail, or at least something similar to sharpness, in that rock. Keep in mind that I applied a medium adjustment. Maybe a low adjustment would have been more subtle, but this was to see exactly how the tool works. And notice how, in all the rocks, all the details in the distance, we get extremely high sharpness. Here, these rocks that are a bit blurred by the water, we get a lot of sharpness. You can clearly see the work of artificial intelligence in all those areas. And as you can see, if we practice photography, if we were doing portrait photography, we would also have the option to enhance the model's face by clicking this part here. In this case, we don't have any models, so this won't apply anything. And with that, we wrap up this first episode of this free Luminar NEO course, which you can enjoy on the Natural Portraits YouTube channel and within the Natural Portraits Academy. Also, let me remind you that within the Natural Portraits Academy, we'll be supplementing this course with some extra content, exclusive for Academy students. If after watching this first episode of the course, you've decided that Luminar NEO is the software you need for your photo editing, remember that by using the code NATURAL, you'll get a €10 discount on any of the plans. Don't miss out. And with that, I say goodbye. I'll see you again in the next episode of this Luminar NEO course.